Last week, we looked at some things that really run contrary to how we naturally approach things. And today, we're going to go even deeper into that. Today, we're going to talk about success and goal achievement and the pursuit of happiness and perhaps a little bit of the American dream, and how all of those things work together to give us a blurry picture of reality, right? All of those things kind of work against us to distort our view. And I believe that life is better with clarity. So part 5 of our message series is this idea that life is better with clarity. So let's consider some of the ways that maybe we've allowed a distorted view to rob us of the better life. If you came in today, when you came in today, you probably got a worship guide. On the back of the worship guide, there are sermon notes, and I've got 3 distorted views, distorted goals, things that we pursue that are distortions of what is actually best for us and actually good for us. And so I'd invite you to grab that as we move through Romans chapter 12, and I'll help you fill in a couple of blanks. Those blanks, just so you know, everything on your sermon notes is the wrong attitude, the wrong idea. I just wanted to kind of highlight the ways that we think wrongly, the distorted views, so that we can start to think more clearly about these things. That sound helpful? I'm going to do it very quickly, I promise. I'm a big believer in the fact that there are 2 emotions that you could have walking out of this room. You could say, man, I thought he was never going to shut up, or man, that was over quicker than I thought. And I think the second emotion's better. So I'm aiming for that today. I'll get you out of here in a hurry and hopefully give you some stuff that could really help you as we do it. So Romans chapter 12, I'm going to start reading in verse 2. Romans is a letter that the Apostle Paul wrote to a church in Rome. So it's not really like a book. He didn't set out to write a book. He wrote a letter to the people in Rome and said, here's some things that are going to make your life better. Here's some things you should know about following Jesus. And this is one of the things that he wrote towards the end of that book, in that book of the Bible in chapter 12. Verse 2, he says, don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. So the first thing on your sermon notes, the first bad goal, the first sort of distorted goal, is copy and paste. Copy and paste goals. And here's the blanks that I would encourage you to fill in there. If I had what others have, I'd be happy. That's the blanks, is others have. If I had what others have, then I'd be happy. It's this idea that we could copy what they have because it seems to be working for them, paste it into my own life, and then I would be happy in the ways that I perceive that they would be happy. Yet the Apostle Paul says, don't copy the customs of the world. Don't copy the behaviors of the world. Don't copy what you see other people do, and let God transform you. Let's be honest, this is how we determine most of what we want in life, right? We look at what others have, and we think, seems to be working for them. Perhaps I'll have some of the same, right? If I had the job that he has, I'd be happy in the ways that he is. If I had the power that she has, I'd be happy in the ways that she is. If I looked like that, I'd be happy because I'd feel good about myself all the time in the ways that I perceive that they feel good about themselves all the time. If I lived in that house, if our family had that house, we'd be happy in the way that I assume that family is. That family always looks so happy in that house. If we had that house, we'd be happy too. And this is how a copy and paste goal works. It's a distortion of reality. If you're a follower of Jesus, or even if you're just a believer in God at all, if you'd say, I don't know about Jesus yet, but I do think there is an entity, I do believe there is a God who's kind of pulling the strings and put everything in motion and is in control. What we communicate with copy and paste goals is, God, you have given to someone else what you should have given to me. This is a copy-paste mentality. God, you gave it to them and I deserved it. That should have been mine. But Romans 12:2 communicates that we should not copy what others have. But that's the only way we really know how to set up goals. Like, well, Drew, how am I supposed to know what car to want if I don't look at what the other cars that people have? Like, I can't just imagine a new car, right? It's the only way that we even know how to determine what we want. How am I supposed to figure out what job I want if I don't look around and see who seems to be happy in the jobs that they have. Well, Paul invites us to allow God to transform us into new people, to change the way that we think. What will happen if we allow God to do that? What will happen if we let God transform the way we think? Well, then we will learn His will. Then we'll begin to see the things that He has for us. If we'll accept that it comes from Him, if we'll seek Him as the one who can actually give us what we're searching for, if we would let Him do the copying and pasting into our lives, then perhaps we would experience things very differently. I'd encourage you to consider this question. We could put this question on the screen. How different would our lives be if we were primarily interested in pursuing only things that God would have us pursue? How different would everything be? How differently would we approach our work, our relationships, our purchases, even our thought life, if we let God define success for us? If we became the kinds of people who would just lean in and say, I think God knows best, what would we do differently if we were just interested only in what He would have us pursue, only in what He would have us believe? Have you ever stopped to consider how many of the things that you're pursuing in your life, or maybe that you've pursued in the past, that you only want because others have it? Ever thought about all the things that you chased after? You're like, I only did that because everybody else did it. I only bought that because everybody else bought one. I only went after that goal because everybody else appeared to be going after that goal. Are there things that you only want because other people want them? Or because it appears that that's what other people are pursuing? My wife and I went through something like this a few years ago. It was about 2 or 3 years back. We decided that we were going to buy a car, but we happened to decide we were going to buy a car soon after a bunch of our friends all bought cars, right? They all got new cars, and so we thought, well, maybe it's about time we start looking for a car. And they all bought minivans too, don't judge me. It's a stage of life that I'm in. So all of my friends got minivans, and we started thinking maybe it would be nice. Plus, I don't know what the big deal is with a minivan anyways. It's kind of great. It's like having a pickup truck that nobody ever asks to borrow. From my perspective, seems like a pretty good solution for a lot of problems. But anyways, we started to pursue it. But we pursued it because everybody else, all of our friends were doing that. And so we went to a car dealership. I don't know if you guys raise your hand maybe if you've ever been to a car dealership. I hadn't. So I was 28. It's the first time I'd ever been to a car. I'm from West Virginia, southern West Virginia. I wouldn't say I grew up poor, but once I got out into the real world, I realized we didn't have as much as other people. We didn't go to car dealerships. If I needed a new car, just kind of drove around the neighborhood. People leave them parked in their front yard if they're not using it anymore. And you go in and you barter, right? You're like, what could maybe I'd trade? Could I work for you for a while in your fields? And maybe I could drive this car. So 28, first time I'd ever been on a car lot. And it is intoxicating, right? They have cars there, brand new ones. There's no grass growing up around them. There's nothing living in it. And they've got features, and they're shiny, and there's so much cool stuff at these car dealerships, and they'll let you drive one, and they'll let you get in it, and you could try it out for a little while. And so we checked it out, and about 2 hours after we got there, I was sitting at a desk in a man's office in Volkswagen of St. Louis about to sign the bottom line on a car that I didn't even want. Hadn't even stopped to think about whether I wanted it or not. We just started doing it because our friends did it. Everybody else got a new car, so we thought maybe it's time for us to get a new car. I just got 250,000 miles on it. My car came with my wife. Top 5 reasons I married her. She brought it into our marriage about 10 years ago, and it's 250,000 miles at this point. It's full of vomit and blood and just snot. We got 2 little girls that just ruined the inside. It's a DNA nightmare. So what I'm saying is, if I ever offer you a ride, you have a right to know the types of things that have happened in this car are problematic. So anyways, I was sitting at this table. I'm about to sign the dotted line. And I say to my wife, I'm like, I don't even want this. Do you want this? She said, no, we don't want this. And we got up and we walked out. And we still haven't bought the new car. Still hasn't exactly resonated with us. But what we realized is there's a danger with these kinds of things. When you copy someone else's life, you copy someone else's reality, you see everybody else seems to be doing this, maybe we should too. The danger with some goals is that you're likely to achieve them, only to discover that you didn't even want it to begin with. What I would have gotten with that car is a payment that I would still be paying today for something I didn't even want. I would have achieved the goal, right? The goal was a copy and pasted goal. Everybody got a new car. Let's get a new car. We could have gotten the new car, and I would have resented the car because I didn't even want it. Other people did. So I assumed I would too. Nothing, this is a statement I think we have for the screen, nothing feels worse than attaining or achieving a goal that you worked hard on, you spent lots of money, time, energy, effort, only to discover that you don't even want it. There's nothing worse than copying somebody else's reality, pasting it into your life, pursuing it, putting blood, sweat, and tears into getting it, and then realizing you don't even want it. The Apostle Paul warns us against that. Don't copy and paste your goals. Verse 3. Is that helpful? We'll move on to the second one. Verse 3. Because of the privilege and authority God has given me, I give each of you this warning. Now get ready for this warning. He does say, here comes a warning, so be on alert. He's about to be warned. He's going to say something that's going to seem a little hurtful at first, but allow me to explain it to soften the blow a bit. He says, don't think you are better than you really are. Be honest in your evaluation of yourselves, measuring yourselves by the faith that God has given us. The second bad goal, the second distorted goal, distorted approach to reality is this. It's a full filter goal. Hashtag full filter. Are you familiar with filters on social media? You ever seen the hashtag no filter? Hashtag no filter is basically somebody posts a photo and they want to let you know, normally when I post a photo here online, I lie to you. Right? That's what no filter means. It means normally I lie to you. Normally I doctor up the photo. I make myself look better than I actually do. I make my skin tone a little darker or a little lighter, whatever it is that I'm hoping for this picture. I clean things up. I make the sunset appear better than it actually appeared. I make the eggs Benedict that I cooked that I'm taking a picture of for you. I make them look more appetizing than they actually are. But today, this is how I actually look. Right? That's what hashtag no filter means. Today, I regret that I normally lie to you. And I want to let you know that I'm going to tell you the truth today. But I wanted you to consider this full filter idea. This idea that we begin to lose the ability to even see ourselves clearly because of the filters that we put on for others. Because of the filters that we want to project, the things that we want people to see whenever they look at us. We project so many different things about ourselves on social media, in life in general, in talk at lunch, at work, at school, wherever we go. We want to project some image of ourselves so much that we don't even realize we've got the full filter on. I don't even realize that's not even me I'm projecting anymore, and we start to even forget who we even are. The second category of distorted goals here are goals that we pursue because we expect more of ourselves than what even makes sense. The blanks there, what a full filter goal is this idea. If I don't achieve my goals, if I don't achieve what I project for myself, I can't be fulfilled. If I don't achieve my goals, I can't be fulfilled. What's problematic about that is that, first of all, that means that if you don't achieve your goals, which some of them you might not, you'll never be happy. It's like if there are some goals that we set for ourselves, some things that it's like, I'll never be happy until I do that. And what if you never even get to do it? It's one of the problems with a full filter goal is this. So I want us to look at this verse. I'm going to break down this verse into three things that the Apostle Paul shows us here. I'd call it this, Paul's guide to improving self-evaluation. He's essentially talking about self-evaluation here. Three things he teaches us, though. The first one is this. Whenever he says, don't think you are better than you really are. That sounds harsh at first, but give it a minute. Paul is he's telling us here, lose the filter. Stop seeing yourselves the way that you want other people to see you and start seeing yourself for who you truly are. What's really going on? Drew, are you suggesting that we lower our expectations of ourselves? Maybe. Yeah, maybe. If they're the wrong expectations, perhaps there is need for that. More importantly than lowering, though, I would just say correcting. Some of the expectations that we have for ourselves just don't even make sense. They fundamentally don't even fit who we are. The Did you know? I don't think you knew, but did you know that the people of Denmark are this my people, my tribe, the Dunbars, I believe, somewhere back there. We started at Denmark. Um, the people of Denmark are time and time again found to be the happiest people on the face of the planet. Happiest people on the planet. The American people, people of the United States, are discovered to be among the most depressed. Right? We sit at the bottom as United States citizens, as Americans. We are the saddest of nations. And the people of Denmark are the happiest of nations. Now, economically, experientially, the two, growing up in Denmark and growing up in the United States, are pretty similar. Now, there are some differences governmentally. There are some differences to the structure of the way that these two countries work. But really, their experience growing up there, they're not a whole lot more poor than us or a whole lot more rich than us. Their experience is very similar to ours. But what makes them happier is very, very interesting. And I'm just going to put it out there and let us consider it. What makes them happier, though, is the people of Denmark, much like the people of the United States, most of them fall into what is considered to be a middle class. Right? There's people at the top of society financially, and in their jobs, and then people in a lower category of society in their finances and jobs, and then there's a middle class, and most people fall into the middle class. What makes the people of Denmark happier than other nations is most of them expect to be in the middle class. Most of them experience what they expect to experience to some degree. They evaluate themselves well. They say, it seems that I'll probably land somewhere in this middle region, and I'll be good with that. I'll be very happy with that. But in the United States, no one expects to be middle class. No one is happy being middle class, yet most of us are. That's how it became the middle class. Right? In the United States, we want to be this top of society. We want this fame, fortune, power. But there's just not that much of it to go around. There's just not that much fame, fortune, and power to go around. There's only one CEO in the company. And there's a lot of people that work for the company, and they have good jobs, and they're taken well care of. But in the U.S., we have this tendency to expect much more. And he says, don't think you are better than you. Don't think you deserve a better experience, and don't think that somebody else's experience is actually better than yours. This is what he's teaching here. Secondly, he says, be honest in your evaluation of yourself. Perhaps his initial reprimand here sounds harsh whenever he says, don't think you're better than yourself, but it sets you up to take the next bit of advice. He says, be honest when you evaluate yourself. It may not necessarily mean dropping the bar all the way to the ground, but it's good advice whenever it comes to filters. He says, lose the filter. Look at you, not the you that you project to everybody else. Look at who you really are. Look in a mirror, not social media. It doesn't matter how many likes the photo got. It matters how you actually look. Right? It doesn't matter how other people are affected by it. It matters who I am. It doesn't matter who other people expect me to be. It matters who I am. Be honest in your evaluation of yourselves. He's reminding us to evaluate honestly. There is nothing more painful or entertaining, if we're being really honest about it, than the American Idol auditions that used to that swept over the nation, right? Do you remember that back whenever they did these? I don't know if that show's even still on. I haven't watched it in a while, but I remember whenever it first came out, there were these people, and I watched not for the talented. I watched for the people who could not evaluate themselves properly, right? I watched because there were people who would wait in line for weeks so that they would have an opportunity to audition in front of professional singers, professional producers, professional talent scouts, and millions of Americans, and absolutely embarrass themselves because they could not evaluate honestly, because they could not look at themselves and say, perhaps this is not my strength, right? There's nothing worse than this. He says, be honest in your evaluation of yourself. You might save yourself some embarrassment, but you'll certainly save yourself from some disappointment. And again, it's not about lowering the bar. It's not about lowering expectations. It's about correcting them, right? It's not that we expect too much. It's not that we aim too high and we never attain it. It's that we aim wrong. We're just looking at the wrong target often. Paul sets us up to drop the filters. He says, don't think you're better than you are. Like, look at who you really are. Learn to evaluate yourself better. And then he says, instead of copying and pasting, instead of these other distorted ways, he says, do this. Measure yourself by what God has given you. Measure yourself by the faith that God has given us. Here lies his advice in light of all that we're considering. He's not suggesting that the attitude and entitlement that we have, he's not suggesting you drop the attitude, right? Drop the entitlement. Start beating yourself up. Stop expecting so much for yourself. He's saying, measure yourself by God's standard of measuring. He's suggesting that we allow God to put us where we belong, to trust that he knows us better than we know us, to trust that he knows what you want better than you know what you want, that he knows how he made you better than you think you do. He's suggesting that we allow God to put us there. He's suggesting that we stop filtering ourselves and start allowing him to provide the filter for us. This whole full filter approach to our experience here, it's a distorted goal. It's a distorted view. It will not lead to a better life. You were created for great things, and God knows what those things are. You were created for greatness. You were created to make a difference. You were created to help people. You were created to do something awesome with your life, and God knows what that is. It's only whenever we start to figure it out for ourselves, whenever we start to ask and look around and copy and paste other people's experience and other people's reality, and it's only then that we begin to miss the mark. It's not that we're expecting too much of ourselves. It's not that we've set the bar too high. It's just that we set it wrong. Verse 4, if we're reading on, I'm going to give you the last point on the sermon notes. He says, just as our bodies have many parts, each part has a special function. Paul had this tendency, this kind of running analogy, running metaphor for the body of Christ, the people who would follow God, the people who would be a part of the church, to say, think of yourselves like a body. Like we really do function like a body, and different parts of the body have different functions, and they all matter. They're all important, but you got to know what you are. So it is with Christ's body. We are many parts of one body. We all belong to each other. Isn't that a beautiful idea? Isn't that a beautiful concept in Scripture? We belong to each other. We're one body. We have different skin colors, different backgrounds, different nations of origin, different family upbringings, yet we somehow belong to each other. We are one unified. There is only one race. There's only one. We are human. We are God's created body to function with each other, to help each other, to serve each other. We belong to each other. Let's take care of each other. I'm off the notes. This isn't the notes. This is something else. Just as a pastor, if I could address that for my church, the people that I get to talk to on Sunday, can we start acting like we belong to each other? Like we matter to each other, like we're caring for each other, like we were caring for our own body? We would stop looking at people and saying, you're an other, and you're an other, and you're an other, and I'm a whatever. No, we belong. We have a responsibility to care for each other. It's got to start in the church. It's got to start with the people who trust that Jesus is who he says he is. It's got to start with us, that we would say we belong to each other. In his grace, God has given us different goals for doing certain things well. The third category of distorted goals is malfunction. Malfunction types of goals. It says this, a malfunction goal says this: if I had the right skills, that's the blanks there, my life would be better. If I had the right skills, my life would be better. If I had the right upbringing, if I had the right talents, the right gifting, if I looked the right way, if I had the right skills, my life would be better. And the third category is really about us learning to celebrate our unique design. Celebrate your unique purpose. Paul allows his teaching to come to a place of resolve here with this idea that distorted goals, all of them, all three categories that we talked about today, everything that he addresses in Romans chapter 12, comes down to this. It's a product of a distorted view of your purpose. It's all a product of us not exactly fully understanding why we're here. Right? A copy and paste goal is I should have what they have, so I'll put it in my... That is a distortion of reality, and reality is that God put you here to do something that He didn't put them here to do. He put you here to do it. Right? The second category that we looked at were these ideas of filtered reality, that I expect something of myself that I am not. I expect to be something that I am not, that God would actually say to you, no, I created you for a purpose. If I meant to put something else in you, I would have. But I didn't make a mistake with you. I made you right for the purpose that I created you for. It's a malfunction to think otherwise. You were created for something incredible, but we've got to see clearly what it is. As long as you believe that you were created to succeed by your own measure of success, that you were created to attain, achieve, set and reach your own goals, you might miss the better life that God actually created you to experience. That's not why you're here. You're here to worship. And if that seems like a leap, give me just a minute, okay? And if the band would come, I'm going to close on this idea. I'm going to finish up here. You were created to worship. You are here to celebrate the goodness and grace of who God is. See, we started on verse 2 of Romans chapter 12, right? We flipped it. The Apostle Paul gets to start in a different place than I did. I mean, first of all, because he wrote 11 chapters first, right? Romans chapter 12 is the 12th chapter. There are 11 chapters that precede that in the letter that we didn't address all of them today. So he gets to start in a different place. But he's also addressing a different culture than the culture that we find ourselves in. He addresses a different society. These people are asking different questions than we are asking. Often we are asking the question, how can I succeed in all of the ways that I perceive I am supposed to succeed? Right? Drew, if you could help me just succeed in all the ways I'm trying to succeed, if you could help me do the things that I think I'm here to do, if you could help me do that stuff, that would be super helpful. But I feel like I have to make a case for you and help you understand it's the wrong question. It's the wrong question. We actually have to revisit and redefine success. We have to go back and say, wait a second, God is the one who created me. God is the one who designed me. God is the one who gave me a purpose, and God is the one who can fulfill me. And so then we begin to take steps away from this sort of success mentality, this sort of like, just tell me how to succeed, and start to take steps in the direction of, well, maybe God would like to transform my definition of success. Maybe God would like to change the way that I think. And I believe that's 100% true. Here's what Paul actually says at the start of all of this. In Romans chapter 12, verse 1, he says, "And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you, give your bodies to God because of all He has done for you. Give God everything you are. Recognize the significance of what He has done for you, what He has given you, and give it all to Him. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind He will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship Him." And then he goes on to teach everything that we've just now discussed. But consider this idea. He's speaking into their situation and saying, here's the point. Here's the reality. Here's what you got to understand. God gave you everything. He put you here. He put breath in your lungs. He put blood in your heart. He's keeping everything working. He gave it all to you. Give it back to Him. And in doing so, you will find fulfillment. In doing so, you will find happiness. You pursue success as you perceive success to be, you might get it, and you'll be disappointed. Do you know why God tells us to worship Him? Do you know why God draws all the attention to Him? Because nothing else will fulfill you. Because He cares about you that much that we get this image sometimes of a narcissistic God who just wants all the attention. Yeah, He wants all the attention because that's what's best, because He actually is at the center of the universe, right? When you call somebody else a narcissist, what you're essentially saying is like, what, do you believe you are God? Right? Well, God believes He's God because He's God, right? He draws the attention to Himself. He says, pursue me. Give your life as a living sacrifice. Like you get to live, you get to have life. That living sacrifice idea is huge. It's central to this series, this better life that he's inviting us to. Paul was talking to a group of people who used to think of God as a God of death, right? What do I have to kill to make God happy? And Paul actually says, no, you get to live and make him happy with your life. He's inviting you to something better here. He created you for something better here. And it's to worship him. It's to honor him. It's to set our sights on him and to say, I will pursue him with everything I've got. I'll put everything into knowing him. I'll put everything into celebrating his goodness. I'll use everything I've got to serve him, to tell other people about him. I'll be a witness. I'll invite people to church. I'll bring people with. I'll do everything I can to help his kingdom move forward. And in that, you will find your fulfillment. Apart from him, I promise you won't be fulfilled. You might succeed. And you'll succeed in things that don't matter. And you'll be disappointed. Why does God tell us to worship him? Why does he teach us to celebrate him? Because we won't be fulfilled any other way. Would you bow your heads and close your eyes for just a moment?